The plan noted that the Demumbring Street Viaduct provides minimal sidewalk access for pedestrians, but it also stressed that this bridge should be considered more than just a practical connector. It's also an opportunity to provide a place, to an experience, and to connect the greenway system. One of the issues we face as a city is the need for additional green space downtown. We're obviously investing in big projects along the river to help accomplish that, but you can also accomplish it through connecting this greenway and making a portion of the bridge green. I mean, they actually have a park-like function to it. The money to pay for the bridge was included in the fiscal year 14 capital spending plan. That was $18 million. That same amount was identified for this project in the fiscal year 15 capital budget. The council several months ago, earlier this year, indefinitely deferred the land acquisition bill for the Gulch Bridge. I wasn't there for the meeting, but essentially what I understand the discussion was, why put more sidewalk or investment in infrastructure downtown when there are needs in other parts of the county? And as a result of that, we decided to put additional money into the capital spending plan for fiscal year 15 for sidewalks, $17 million in fact. So the total amount spent on sidewalks during our administration has been in the area of $57 million, which is, I believe, a substantial amount, which you add that or look at that in the context of $228 million spent on sidewalks, bikeways, and road paving. There's investments being made all over the county and making the city better. Also, to address, I think, one of the concerns stated by the council, we looked at a different way of financing this. The original way of financing it was going to be through regular bonds issued by the city. And under the new plan we have now, the bridge will be paid for by tax dollars generated from the properties that will benefit the most from the project. The Gulch is part of a redevelopment district, which allows, among other things, for MDHA to issue tax incremental financing to private developers to help spur development in the area. And the increment property tax is the amount of the property tax generated by the development minus what the property was already generating in taxes prior to the construction. TIF loans help to pay for the cost of infrastructure, things such as parking structures and things like that. There are several residential and commercial developments in the Gulch with existing TIF loans. When those loans are repaid, MDHA can continue to collect. After the loans have been repaid for that specific project, MDHA can continue to collect the increment property tax for those projects to fund other infrastructure projects. In this case, Metro will keep those funds and use them, will keep them until the bridge is paid for. So in essence, the folks using the bridge or the folks who will benefit most from the bridge will be the folks paying for it. The legislation has now been put back on the council agenda. It will require a reading on October 17th and then a final reading on October 21st. Is that right?
October 7th.
October 7th. October 7th. And then once that legislation is approved, we can move forward with the final design of the bridge and work on the land acquisition, depending on how all that goes. And we'll begin construction on it by early summer 2015, and the bridge will not be completed till I'm out of office for probably a year, 2016 in the fall. That's basically where we are. Only thing I would add to this is, I think in terms of the Gulch, there's probably no infrastructure need that is more apparent than this one. I think one of the things you have to do in a city, particularly a city like ours that is growing, but also growing strong in the downtown area in different spots, is you got to make sure things are connected. You got to connect the dots. Whether it's connecting the Gulch to SoBro, or whether it's ultimately connecting the Germantown area to downtown, that's going to be a real focus, I think, for the city moving forward. And I think you're going to continue to see strong development as a result of investments like the bridge. It's going to make it easier for people to invest in hotels, restaurants, retail, housing, on both sides of the bridge. And it also sends a good message in my mind. It's going to be a beautiful bridge. I mean, this is not just a straight bridge. I don't think we should build the cheapest possible bridge. It ought to be something we're going to be proud of. But it also sends a great message about walking. You know, if you're going to have a city, you need to be able to walk to get from here to there. You need to encourage people to use bicycles and to walk. You want people to have lunch outdoors, and this will accomplish all of that. And then in the way it's being paid for, this is probably the most pure and the most correct use of TIF. I mean, TIF can be used for a lot of different reasons, and I think the city has done a good job historically managing TIF projects. But this is actually not working on a specific project for one developer or one piece of property. This is infrastructure for a whole area. And it removes this tax burden from the rest of the county and puts it right where it should be. But it's going to result in increased development and I think a larger and expanded tax base. So to me, it's just a solid win-win for everyone. So
the projects that are that Michael reported on that are affected: Mercury View Lofts, Gulch Crossing, 1212, 1201 Demonbreun, Laurel House Apartments, and the Bohan Building. Is that?
Those are the ones, yes.
Seven, yes, sir.
Okay.
7 in total.
And if you didn't do this and you just paid back the bonds that are currently obligated, what would happen to the tax increment financing if you let that expire?
Once the loans were paid off, that money would stay with MDHA. The increment would stay with MDHA, which it could use for other development or infrastructure projects in the Gulch area, in that redevelopment district.
So it wouldn't go away, you would just keep...
It would stay there. It would stay there. It stays within that redevelopment district. Over the last 20 or 30 years of practice, dating back 2, 3, 4 administrations, once the redevelopment districts have been created and once TIF loans have been paid off on individual projects, rather than that money coming back to the city, directly to the city coffers, it stays with MDHA and is used by MDHA for projects within that district to further the purposes of creating the redevelopment district. And so that's sort of the pattern and financing.
We've actually done that before, Frank. Rich, why don't you go through
Yeah, there's been 4 or 5 examples of where that's exactly been done. Church Street, when it was redone, gosh, probably 10 or 12 years ago now. This would have been probably in the Purcell administration. And if you remember, Church Street was one way, and they made Church Street 2-way, and it was used to do a little serpentine in it. They straightened it out, did new sidewalks. So that was used. This same kind of structure was paid off TIF loans. The surplus revenues were used to pay for that. A portion of which is used for the new ballpark.
That's what I thought.
Is an example of that, where there's some paid off TIF loans there that MDHA was capturing that money and we're using to help pay for part of the ballpark cost.
Country
Music Hall of Fame, Omni Hotel, and
Rolling Mill Hill.
Rolling Mill Hill, infrastructure in Rolling Mill Hill. So it's not a new model, but it's one that, after we gave it more thought and listened to what the council said, this seemed to be an appropriate project to go this route as well.
Just real quickly before I let the smarter people talk about things, bikes, we've heard a lot of complaints from readers about the bridge design is not conducive to bicycle riders, that they have to walk across it. There's a lot of concern in your in the plan as they understand it from readers that that's a problem.
Well, the plan, when we had the deferral in the council, I think we were at 40% design, and we basically stopped at that point. So there's still more work to be done on the plan. I mean, it would certainly be my desire to see it be as bike friendly as it possibly can be. Whether we're able to fully make it entirely, never have to get off the bike at any point on the bridge, I don't know. I mean, that's a sort of a function of engineering and design, but that would be the most desirable outcome.
You're sort of, you've got to get up so high, so fast, and so it's an engineering work. But I think that they will obviously take that into consideration and try to come up with a design that ultimately will serve as bikers as well.
Everybody involved knows that's a priority.
Okay, so that's a good point, because when we look at pictures, I don't think that we get a sense of what the arc is going to be, how quickly does it rise?
CSX requires you to be 24 feet above the railroad track. So that's sort of the driving requirement. If you think about...
You mean for new construction? Because certainly these bridges out here are not
I
24 feet.
I don't know about those, but I know about this one. And it's
Okay.
24 feet above. So if you think you've got to get 24 feet in the air above the railroad line and then come down.
Right.
And as the mayor said, there's still work to be done. So
Okay.
that's sort of a big driving factor from a design perspective.
So that is more of a driving factor than the park-like setting that you're building throughout the bridge.
Well, the park-like setting is important too. I mean, I just think the bridge, if you're going to have something that prominent that everybody will be able to see,
Right.
and you have a limited amount of green space downtown, and it's part of the greenway system, you want to have a park-like where people can probably in every month but August sit outside and eat lunch or stop and pause and take in their surroundings. That's important to me.
Okay.
Was there a specific reason why this came back right now? Why all of a sudden last week there was the rally and the Connect Facebook page? Why right now?
Well, I think there were a lot of disappointed people when it got deferred. I think the people who live in the Gulch and a lot of people who are concerned about connectivity in the city, whether it's cycling, walking, just making the city work, there were a lot of disappointed people. I was one of them. And so it's been on my agenda all along, and I think we just got to the point where we felt we were ready. And I think it's one of these projects where there really is nothing to be gained from delay other than additional costs down the road. The need is, to me, is so apparent, and that's the timing. I mean, we didn't want to do it. You know, we probably had other thoughts in our minds about during the middle of the budget process and some other stuff we were working on, but this seemed like a good time.
Are you worried that the next mayor would not prioritize this at the same level that you would prioritize it?
I mean, I guess that would cross someone's, not my mind yet. I mean, I'm really not thinking that way yet. I mean, I've got another whole other year, and at any point we could have come back in a year. I just think it's a good project. It's just one of these projects that makes a ton of sense to me. It sends a lot of the messages that I think are important about connectivity and exercise and making the city work. And then it is important developmentally to SoBro, and it's important developmentally to the Gulch. And it's not something that I thought of. I mean, this is something that came out of the SoBro master plan after lots of community meetings where people said this was one of the highest priorities.
I mean, there's two major developments looking on the other side of SoBro across from the convention center, two major hotel projects that have been talked about publicly, so there's no secret there. And you know, and that's in addition to everything else that's already happened in that area. So I think when you start looking at the need, you know, you'll have potentially 800 or 900 hotel rooms, new hotel rooms right across from the convention center, connected to the Gulch now with this pedestrian access. I mean, it's a good time to do it because the development in that area is at an all-time high. I mean, it's a very popular area right now, so it's a good time to do it.
Would you see those 2 hotels being added to the 7 to help with the cost?
I don't think so.
No need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the financing plan, we think is pretty solid in terms of paying back the city within a 10-year, with a 7-year period. I said because it's 7 years, yeah, 7 or 8 year period, well under 10 years period, and so in that 7 or 8 year period, we think it's ample time to pay it back.
So that's a good clarification point. The numbers I was looking at, you would have this paid back by 2022?
2022 is the year.
Right. That's the year,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
And I think those are pretty conservative assumptions. Properties are going up in value, so with reappraisals and all that, it could be sooner than that, but we think conservatively by 2022.
So, go ahead.
How much land would you have to acquire exactly, and how much of the 18 million is being planned for land acquisition costs?
About $1 million has been set aside in the rough budget for land acquisition, and there's 4 or 5 property owners. It depends on where it actually ends up landing and all that. I mean, the big one being the easement over the railroad tracks, and then there's it's got to land on the SoBro side somewhere, and so there'll be 1 or 2 parcels on there that would either be acquired or an easement over which all that will depend on the final design. And then there's a couple on the Gulch side that have to be
Have
acquired.
you talked to CSX yet about the easement? You've already had conversations with them?
And our Public Works
How's
folks
that
know
going?
it. Good.
Public Works has an excellent relationship. They work
We deal with them all the time,
time.
Public Works.
And so they don't see, you know, it just takes time to get through the CSX process, but they're optimistic about that. They know it's coming, so I think that.
Would you use eminent domain if it came down to it?
I would rather not.
Well, of course.
I don't think we'll have to.
Yeah,
But
I think all parties are working well
most of
together.
yeah, there's been discussion with all the parties, so everybody kind of knows. Again, it kind of depends on, you know, if it's moved 10 feet one way or something to make somebody happy, and that's when the engineers get with the property owners and start saying, okay, if we're going to land on your property, you know, where's best for you, and hopefully that all will work and accommodate with the design of the bridge. But you know, the parcels on the Gulch side, both sides, I think we've had a lot of conversations. I don't think there's going to be any stridentness there. I mean, ultimately, sometimes you do condemnation for friendly. It's called a friendly condemnation for legal and tax reasons. They want you to condemn the property because it helps them for their purposes. So, I think it's all going to be done. And I think everybody who owns property on both sides sees the value and will want to cooperate.
The one thing the mayor mentioned earlier, I think is important to reiterate again, that when we stopped, we were only at about 40% design. There's a big chunk of design and work to be done. So some of those specific details we won't know for a little while.
Right.
There's probably 5, 6, 7 months left of real design, engineering work. And so exactly where the bridge lands, what specifically you can accommodate or can't accommodate as it relates to bike needs, which, you know, I have an interest in too. And those kinds of things, we don't know all the details yet, but what this council legislation does is let us begin the process of having acquisition conversations with the people on both ends of the bridge and where it lands. That's what allows us to start again.
Sure. Follow up on Stephanie's question. The 17 million includes the land acquisition, includes the design work, or is?
Yeah, the 18 million, up to 18 million total would be the complete project.
Okay. And go ahead.
Who's doing the design work? What firm?
Parsons, Brinkerhoff.
The engineers.
They're the engineers.
Hunter G's
And
firm is the
Hunter
architects.
G Design Studio, I think, is the design firm working on the bridge. They're actually tenants in Cummins Station.
Yeah, Parsons Brinkerhoff something is the lead engineering firm on the project.
Public Works in our shop is managing that.
And then and Bell Construction was selected to be the construction manager on the project. Those were all done pre this, and those contracts were just picked back up.
Okay.
The vote to defer this the first time was pretty overwhelming. What are the conversations that you're having with other council members about it? Have you made the case?
Well, I don't know if I'd agree it was overwhelming. I think it was, I don't know. You guys are the politicians, not me. But
Were you there that night?
I mean, it depends if we had wanted to
Were you there? Right?
Well, it depends if we'd wanted to push a vote that night. I think we could have passed it that night.
There
We
wasn't
chose
a
not to.
vote. I would say that this project had a lot going for it, and it was deferred. And
Politics of
I think we've got a strong message about the need for it, and we have a strong message about the way it's being paid for.
That's the big
And
difference.
that's the difference. But it's hard for me to see how one could argue this project's not necessary, not going to help the city, and not have a huge impact on creating more property tax revenue downtown that helps the whole city. I mean, that's.
And just to sort of continue to clarify in my mind, if you did not do this project, the difference in property tax revenue would still need to be spent in that area, or does it, or can you take it to other places?
I mean, by law and practice, it can stay in that area. Legally, you could take it out of that area, but by practice, which again, you go back 3 or 4 administrations.
We've never done that.
It's never been done, so it would take
You would
a
have
shift.
a big objection from
Yeah.
people who were paid it,
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
why are you taking what we paid for to do it somewhere else when it was designed to do infrastructure in our redevelopment zone?
I mean, I think the only thing you're taking away is an opportunity to do a different project.
Right.
But I think that's what's so important is that
Right.
the major property owners that we've talked to in the area say, this is what we want the money spent on. So it's not just, it's easy to say, but it's not just you know, it's not the mayor and administration saying we want this bridge, but it's the property people who've put up a lot of money and a lot of development and are continuing to do more development in the area that say, if we're going to maximize and really see the Gulch area grow, this is the piece of infrastructure that we need to make it happen.
And were there any other projects that came up that we would know about, or you would know about, that were alternatives for the financing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm not aware of
No, I
this.
mean, I think the way the scenario on this is that you do the SoBro master plan, you get the recommendations from the master plan. This is a heavy, high recommendation that then we move forward as a government to recommend, and the support is there from the people who live in the area and who work in the area.
So, sorry, I don't mean, but you came up with this plan, 18 million bucks, then also increased your capital request spend and invested more money around
Sidewalks.
Right.
Sidewalks.
That's correct.
Approximately the same amount of money in sidewalks, which was one of the criticisms about the concept.
We have not been, I would say, you look at the history of capital spending since I've been in office, we've invested in sidewalks all along. I mean, it's not like we haven't, and we've as much as anybody has. You know, clearly there is a huge demand for sidewalks in the city, and we try to get to them as fast as we can, and it's going to be an ongoing process. And hopefully the next mayor and the next council put the similar value on it and continue to fund it, and we'll keep making progress. But we've put money there, and we've put more money there because it's clearly something the council wants to see.
Following up on Frank's question, have there been any specific projects that anybody's put forward saying, you know, why are you doing this spectacular bridge thing? Why not, this is a more practical or different, better use of that same money? Is that a conversation that's going on?
I'm not aware of any inside that redevelopment district. I'm not aware of any.
People are talking about stuff maybe outside, but not.
Yeah, and I think that was Frank's point, is inside this redevelopment district, historically, that money, as TIF loans get paid off, has always stayed inside that redevelopment district for future or other, maybe even to be determined infrastructure projects. And so in this particular case, the people who have these TIF loans and who are paying these TIF loans and have made that investment in the redevelopment district have said, this is the priority project that we want inside this redevelopment district. In addition to that, the SoBro master plan was done, and the people, you know, that was very much a community participation type thing, and it came to the forefront as the priority of the SoBro master plan. So we've taken a step forward because the people who are making the investment, generating the tax revenue, paying the TIF loans, have said, in our redevelopment district, if that money's going to stay here, this is the priority, this is the project we want you to prioritize. And that's how we got there.
And once the city's repaid for the bridge, then they'll have the ability to do some other infrastructure projects in the Gulch 6, 7, 8, 10 years from now when it's repaid, because there'll be a stream of revenue, there'll be a lot of money coming in that can be used for whatever is the.
And is that your position on why now? Because there are a lot of people asking, why does this have to happen now? Is that your because why delay, and then when you come back around you'll be that further ahead? Is that what you're
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think
It's a good point.
I think, you know, I think costs are going up every day. I mean, construction costs are rising throughout the city because there's a lot of construction going on in the city. And so the cost, it's only going to get more expensive. I think the need is there, as pointed out, and the desire is there from the property owners to do it. So, I mean, I think it's sort of kind of to play it back is why not now? Because it seems like a good time to do it.
Well, the other thing, it's important to remember that, I don't know what the exact percentages are, but certainly high percentage of what we put in our fiscal year 2014 capital plan, 70, 80, whatever percent, 90% is outside of the downtown area. I mean, Friday, we had a great Friday where we were out in Antioch where we put $32 million?
30 plus.
30 plus. In community center, a new park, private-public partnership with the Predators, I mean, a library. I mean, and you can go to Madison and see the most state-of-the-art police precinct and crime lab probably of any city in the country. So we've invested a lot outside, and we've put a lot in the sidewalks, in a historical comparison between other administrations, I'd say. And so this is just a project that makes sense for a neighborhood It just happens to be in the downtown area, and it happens to have, I think, a tremendous ability to impact other economic development, resulting in an expanded tax base. And I mean, I don't want to overstate the fact that I didn't want a straight, simple bridge. It's an attractive bridge. It's certainly not an extravagant bridge.
Is that what it will look like? 'Cause that's another question. Like,
that's a rendering
what
of
will it
it.
look like, and who is going to get a say in what it'll look like? Because it's going to be, you know, obviously for us, it's going to be a big part of our skyline. But also, you know, a lot of
It's
other
always
folks who
self-interest.
live around the Gulch is going to really make a difference in the skyline. So will you take input as to how the bridge actually will look?
And I'll have to check with the design team and see what their plans are for sort of community input next
To post
steps.
a-
I'm
Yeah,
not
sure. I'm sure we
sure
could do
that-
something.
I'm sure there'll be something.
I'm sure we could do something like that. I just don't, we've just had everybody on hold and
Sure.
nobody's pushed the restart until we,
So that's not necessarily exactly what it will
No,
look
that's an
and,
idea.
and what we understand, I mean, most of the debate has been, do you just build the simplest, cheapest straight bridge where people walk, and, you know, 2 by 2, or do you make something that adds to the accoutrements or to the enhances living in this area? And we voted for number 2, making an enhancement.
And are these supposed to be guitar strings or something?
Rich would know that.
They don't allow me to make it architectural. I don't know. I have no idea what the architecture.
That's probably a good idea. The money guy should not be doing
no, it's
architecture.
not a
They
good
don't-
thing.
they don't
It's
allow
not a
me,
good
uh,
thing.
Nor do I try to exercise any voice over architectural design.
I like the guitar strings idea.
It's a nice, we'll,
Or violin strings, fiddle
we'll
strings.
click on it.
Fiddle strings.
Going back to how tax increment financing revenues work, so do they stay in the district until the district expires?
Till the district expires, right,
Okay.
which is 2040.
Okay.
And so in 2040, then when districts go away, they either get extended by the council, we've done some extensions, or they go away if there's no, felt there's no need for any other development in that area. But the money would stay in there.
And the Church Street was one that was extended, is that correct? Or is it? Because didn't you use the Church Street money for the sounds? Some of that, where did the?
That was in the Jackson Phillips
Oh, okay.
redevelopment
All right.
district, yeah.
Okay.
Church Street's in the downtown, it's the Capitol Mall redevelopment district. And so as, like the loan on Bell South or some of the other downtown projects were paid off, they had some surplus. I hate to use the word surplus with tax money, but they had, non-obligated revenue.
non-designated.
And, yeah, non-designated revenue. And so that they used that to pay for the cost associated with the Church Street project when it was redone.
One other sort of fine point, but I think it's important to say, is that inside this redevelopment district, nothing in how we're doing the financing of this bridge impacts the ability to do future TIF projects in that district. So this doesn't take up all the capacity where you wouldn't be able to do another TIF project for something else, bury infrastructure line, utility lines, whatever it is. So this does not take that ability away inside that redevelopment district.
I think some of the criticism of this has been property owners saying, I don't get to apply my property taxes to my part
Swimming
of.
pool or something like that?
Yeah, you saw the quote, but it sounds like inside a redevelopment district, those property owners do get to.
They have a voice.
Have some say, my money's gonna stay here in my neighborhood.
Remember, these redevelopment districts, I mean, think back now to what the Gulch looked like 10, 12, 15 years ago, and the need to have a redevelopment district where you encourage people to make this investment, the people who really put their capital on the line. It's a whole different type of investment than adding a pool in your backyard or doing something with your driveway. I mean, and it has a tremendous impact on the city. I mean, if you look at how much tax revenue is generated in the Gulch that didn't exist, a decade ago, it's extraordinary. And so
we saw some recent statistics that said it's more than, for example, the Green Hills Mall combined significantly,
Yeah,
about,
right.
about 3 times or something.
And I think the downtown area is strong, and it's going to get stronger, and that's going to help. That helps us with all the other things that we put a priority on, such as schools and public safety. And it contributes in a way that a backyard pool doesn't.
Sure, because sales tax obligated, goes to schools, and so over half your sales tax, well, legally half your sales tax local option has to go to schools, and historically we've given it more than half to schools. And so every time we do a development project that as a sales tax generator, what you're doing is even if you forego the property taxes for a period of time to spur the development, you are getting the other taxes associated with that development, and with sales tax being the most important one to us. I mean, that's really the engine that drives us. I mean, property tax has good, steady growth, but sales tax is where we've seen some. You know, we had a real decline during the recession area, but we've seen just a remarkable recovery in sales tax in the last couple of years.
And the Gulch has been part of that?
Big generator.
Big driver. I mean, between the restaurants and, you know, there's more and more retail in the Gulch now. It's a major generator of sales tax now. We're for nothing, you know, 10 years ago.
So it's been about a year since you were in here for another proposition, the Sounds baseball stadium, and there were, if I recall, there were some hoping numbers in the financing, I believe we called them, or something like that. I forgot exactly.
The ancillary developments around Sounds, yeah.
And how is that coming along? Because I mean, there were $750,000 of annual revenues, I believe, that you were hoping for.
The Embry, the apartment developer, is planning to close on the property as early as Friday, and start their development in October. So that you know, nothing's done until it happens, but it looks pretty good. And the Sounds, the ownership of the Sounds, who were doing the other piece of the development, have just reached an agreement to acquire the last piece of property they needed to complete their puzzle from Nashville Gas, Piedmont Gas. And I don't have an exact schedule, but I would say in 60 days or less, they'll be going through the permitting, zoning process. I don't know what all they're going to have to get done for approval, but going through that process, they have their plans. So I think by the end of this year, both projects will be under construction.
And has Germantown grown faster since? I mean, this is a hanging curveball.
I should have brought
no baseball.
Come on, throw us a changeup or something.
So I'm assuming that's been.
Yeah, I think it's the interesting thing about this project. The Sounds is, first of all, after we met a year or so ago, and it's a really popular project. I mean, this, you know, obviously some things we do are more controversial than others, but people are excited about baseball. They're excited about coming back to the historic home of baseball. I think people believe sincerely that they needed a new stadium. But you see the development was occurring before the stadium deal was announced. Mm-hmm. But after the stadium deal was announced, it just shot up again. Yeah. And so a lot of it has occurred that we didn't predict or rely upon on any of our models. That's an incredibly strong area, and it's only going to get stronger. And you add in to what's going to happen when you get the HCA project here, which they break ground in October, I think, connected together with the new ballpark. That's a game changer for the northern part of our downtown.
I think there's been something like somewhere between 1,000 or 1,500 units of residential have been either announced or gone through the zoning process since the ballpark announcement.
Right. So how many of those are tall skinnies?
No, not in that area.
Not in that area. Not in that area.
Oh, no, I looked at 2 of them.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. You mean the 4-level or there's exactly. A few of those. Yeah.
So Palmer has decided to sell the swimming pool. I hear, read about it. And what does that mean for your plans and your thoughts as it relates to all this that we're talking about?
Well, I think all I know is actually what I've read about in the newspaper.
It's true.
If it's in the paper, that's my attitude. It's true, but it's this corridor right here is an incredibly strong corridor, and that piece of property is a very attractive piece of property. I think that there will be a lot of interest in it, and something will happen good there. What it'll be, I don't know. But when you think about some of the strengths of the city, which I would say the vibrant downtown, the Gulch, Tennessean, Vanderbilt out there. I mean, this is a corridor that is one of the best in the country, and that's right in the middle of it. So.
Speaking of this corridor, what can we expect to see from you on the AMP in your last year in office? Will you be bringing something to the council, or
we're going through the process now of this community discussion that we put together, the group, including people opposed and people for it. and that will probably be completed by the end of this year. There are still, I mean, as I said, when I've talked about this before, I mean, there are a lot of factors here that I don't control, such as the federal budget. I mean, we've got the commitment from the Department of Transportation and the President that this is a good thing, that it's in their budget, that all their engineers think this is a great project. But going through the federal budget process and leaving the politics of this project out of it, just the federal budget process, who knows what happens, particularly right now. So we'll see. I mean, I am, frankly, just by the momentum of news stories in Middle Tennessee, the need for this project is evident every single day and more evident every single day. I mean, the growth, the amount of traffic we have, the demand by millennials and older people that to have transit alternatives is just growing. It's part of this, and it's just there. And I think at some point, folks are going to respond. And I think around the county, I mean, if you think, I still believe that the percentage of folks who are in favor of it are much greater than those who are opposed to it. And the ones who are opposed are in a very narrow district and very
close to the road.
Close to the road, or I'll leave it at that.
Are the administration people still solidly with you? The politics here may have affected their thinking about whether that stays in the budget.
No, I think I can't speak for them totally, other than to say they think it is a great project. They think it is a project that makes all the sense in the world. The engineering's right, and they're behind it. They are not as shocked by opposition to this. I mean, sort of the NIMBY element to this type of project is in every city, and you have this every time you go through any sort of change, and they've seen it 100 times. And time will tell, but I don't think that we're in danger of losing funding at this point, because I think the federal budget's so up in the air.
As the race to succeed heats up, I mean, do you have a narrow window?
I haven't noticed.
Do you have a narrow window to try to move it forward?
No, I can only do what I can do in the time that I have. I mean, I can, we put it on the agenda. We've gotten to the point for the first time in the city's history where the federal government is willing to finance a mass transit project in our city, and they have strong support for it. We went through the state legislative issues last year. We emerged from that alive, which is not easy given the environment up there. I don't control the federal budget, where it ends up during my last 11 months in office. All I can do is do what I think is right for the city, and transit solutions are clearly the right thing for the city, and I'm going to push on, and I can almost guarantee you the next mayor will too. I don't know what else they could possibly do.
What was the reaction to your column yesterday?
It's been good. I think people want to listen. I think they want to make sure that neighbors' voices are heard and that parents' voices are heard. But I think people do understand that when you have the number of priority schools increasing as dramatically as they did, and then when you stop and think of all the priority schools that have been there for year after year after year, and underperforming schools, that we can't accept the status quo. We need to move forward. But I think and I think Dr. Register gets this. You have to listen to what people are saying, what parents are saying, what organizations are saying. But the way I look at it is, you look at these priority schools, and this is what has always motivated me in these education debates, is these first graders, these second graders, and these third graders get one shot at it. They get 1 year in third grade. And you don't give them the best, or you don't give them what you're offering other kids all over the county, then you're doing something wrong, and you need to change it.
Do you have a position on whether Register should stay, go, or whatever?
Well, I think, his contract is, I don't have the exact dates in my head, but his contract is essentially like mine, except I don't get to renew. And I think the next mayor should be involved in the discussions around the hiring of a new school director. And how they handle that, whether it's an extension for Jesse or how they do it, that's up to them. I would say I've been very pleased that Jesse has been open-minded and willing to embrace reform, and particularly in recent months, his position on charter schools, because I think that's going to be vital for the city moving forward.
Were you surprised that he's changed his tenor over the last 4 months?
A little bit, but not totally. When I look at the results, and you look at the schools that have performed really well, the reward schools, and the number of them that are charters, and the number of them that didn't exist 5 years ago, and the level at which they're performing, it's just common sense to embrace what's working. And then when you have, this issue about the test results and the test numbers is a serious one, and having the priority schools increased by such a number is a deep concern. But the right answer is for him to be open-minded and look at a variety of ways to fix that. And so I applaud that.
Any connection between the rise in the number of charter schools and the increase in priority schools? The argument against charter schools has always been that they drain kids out of the rest of the school system.
I don't think so. I don't really accept that argument. I think what charter schools have done is, they bring in a new way of doing things. They bring in a way to do them without certain set rules, and certainly an intensity in terms of the school day and weekends and things like that that's not there in all schools. And I think that's why you get the results. All kids can learn. All kids can learn, and I would not accept the existence of priority schools as something we have to live with. We don't. That we don't. And in fact, we should be doing everything we can to change that, and that's where the city needs to be focused on.
So you were a surprise late entrance into the mayoral race last time. Is the next mayor in the race yet, do you think?
I don't know. It's just moved up a whole, quarter of a year almost, but I don't know. I'm probably the least knowledgeable person on that subject.
I don't believe that, but
I don't either.
But you're not going to get a different answer, so you might as well just call it quits. That may be a good way to.
Well, we'll see. Did you have something else you wanted? All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on another editorial board meeting. I don't know when our next one will be, but we'll let you know on Twitter, Facebook, and through the pages of the Tennessean. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for having us.
Mr. Finance Man. And thank you all. Y'all have a great day.